Welcome to knitting school. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you have never knit before, and we are starting at the absolute beginning. And what I'm going to show you all how to do is first how to cast on stitches, and I'm going to teach the long tail cast on method, then how to do the knit stitch, then how to transfer between rows, how to bind off the stitches or get them off the needles, and then finally how to weave in the ends. For supplies, you're gonna need scissors, US size 8 or 5mm straight needles, which are what we see right here, 20 yards of worsted weight acrylic yarn, and then a yarn needle, also known as a tapestry needle. Here, I just have this little flimsy plastic one. So first, for the long tail cast on, all I need is my yarn and one of my 2 knitting needles. All right, so I'm going to take my ball of yarn and I'm going to unravel about a foot, more or less. And I'm going to have it so that my ball of yarn is pointing away from myself and the tail is coming toward myself. Okay? Then I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to make an L. And I'm going to drape the tail coming toward myself just like this. Okay, so the ball of yarn is up here, the tail is coming toward. Now what I'm gonna do is with my 3 fingers here, so my middle finger, ring finger, and my pinky, I'm going to grab the working yarn and the tail down below. All right, so I'll show you that again. I make my L, I drape it over, tail coming toward myself, and then with my 3 fingers here, I am just grabbing these 2 to sort of tension it. All right, and you can feel free to watch that over if you need to see it again. Now in my right hand, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to slip it underneath this piece of yarn. And with my pointer finger, I'm going to trap this yarn down, so it's not going anywhere. And now I'm going to pull it out like this, and then back. So it's almost like a little slingshot here. And this is going to be the starting position for our cast on. Okay? So the first thing that I need to do is grab this piece of yarn that is on my thumb. And it's very important the way that I grab this, so just be careful as you watch this to make sure that you get it from the right spot. We need to go from behind. So not down here, but behind on the thumb, and pull this out. So I'll show you that again. We are going to go behind the thumb and slip that needle underneath, and then we pull it out. Now here's where people get confused, I would say. So pay close attention to this detail. I would recommend laying your thumb flat against your pointer finger, like so that then you can see clearly what I'm gonna do in this step, okay? When I'm doing this, you can see there are these 2 bars here. That's like this portal, essentially. And then on the other side, we can see this piece of yarn. And we want to pull that piece of yarn from behind through this portal. Okay, so show you from another angle. It's just like that. We're going to take our needle, and we're going to grab this from behind and pull it through, and then let go with our thumb and pull it a little tighter. And the first time you do this, you're going to get 2 stitches. Every time after that, you're just going to get 1. Okay? And that's the part. It looks more complicated than it is. I'm going to show you all again. So to get our next stitch on, we're going to take our thumb and our pointer finger. We're going to go in and separate. And once again, my tail is on my thumb, the working yarn is on my pointer finger. All right? So these 3 fingers I'm gonna grab, and then I take my pointer finger on my right hand and I trap these stitches down so they're not gonna slide right off. All right, so I pull this out and back, getting back to my starting position. I grab from behind, once again, on my thumb, and I open up my portal and lay my thumb flat on my pointer finger. And then I grab this piece of yarn from behind and pull it through that portal. And then I let go of my thumb and I pull it a little bit tighter. All right, so now I have 3 stitches. We are gonna cast on 10. So again, I just separate those out, grab from behind. Make sure when you do that as well that this is in the middle. We get into our starting position, we grab from behind on the thumb and open up that portal. We grab that piece of yarn, we pull it through, let go of the thumb, and pull it tighter. So that's 4. And we are just gonna keep doing this over and over. And as you get the hang of it, you'll go faster and faster. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So feel free to rewatch that section until you get it. If you want to try looking up other videos as well, like I said, it's just called the Longtail Cast On. There's a lot of different videos on that. The nice thing about this as well is that you can count very easily to see how many you have, because unlike crochet, it's each line that we see along the needle. So if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Plain and simple. So we have our long tail casts on down. Now we are ready to actually begin the process of knitting. All right. So I'm gonna have my working yarn on the right here, and the tail, I'm just gonna ignore that. It will get in the way a little bit at the beginning, but don't worry about that. Just make sure that from here on out, we are only using this yarn that's attached to the ball and not accidentally using the tail. A lot of times you do that on accident if you're not paying attention, so just be careful with that. I'm going to slide these stitches just a little bit closer to the edge of my needle here. All right, so they're close to the point, and I'm gonna make sure that my left hand is really close to the top. All right, so we're not holding the needles down here like we're performing surgery. That's, a lot of people do that at first. We really want to choke up on both. So we're covering everything. We can make sure that we're not losing stitches off the edge. That is going to be a really, really important aspect of this, okay? This is going to be the process of knitting. All right, we are going to take our right needle, and from behind, we're going to slide it into this stitch right here. Okay? So again, from behind, we just slide that in, like so. Then in our right hand, we are gonna take this yarn that's attached to the ball, and we're gonna go behind and between those 2 needles. All right, so far so good, easy enough. This is the part you want to watch very, very carefully, okay? I take this in my right hand, now that I have this in position, and with my right pointer finger, I'm gonna hold this down. All right, my left hand, I'm holding these stitches so they don't slide off. Right hand, I'm holding this down so it doesn't slide off the edge of the right needle. And I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to push that through, okay? To show you what that's doing, I'm going in and I'm opening up this, and you're essentially pushing that yarn down through this hole that you open up with that needle. Okay, so to show you from a slightly different angle, I open it up, I take it behind and between, I hold this, I'm just pushing that through from top to bottom, that hole that I've opened, okay? So to show you that in action, I go in from the bottom, I take this yarn behind and between, I trap that down, I push it through the hole, and then literally all you are going to do is slide this off. So off the left needle. And typically you have to slide all of the stitches. You can see how I kind of did that with my left hand. You slide them since they're all connected, and that's what you have to do to get that stitch off, okay? So once again, I'm going to go in from the bottom. I'm going to take this working yarn, go behind and between, then I switch it over to my right hand. I trap this down and I push it through that hole, and then I slide it off. And that is all there is to it, but I do want to show you all how it's going to look starting a new row, because that can be a little confusing at first. All right, so again, just in, behind and between, trap it, push it through, slide it off. And you can see we're just transferring all of those stitches off of the left needle and onto the right needle. All right, so we're getting close to the end. And the last stitch, don't get worried, it's just the exact same thing. We slide it off. So we've just finished our first row, and we have something that looks a bit like this. So I want to show you how we're going to reorient everything to start our next row. So I'm going to take the one that was my left-hand needle, and I'm going to put it on the right-hand side, because now that is an empty needle. And we are going to take this needle and turn it so that we can find where our working yarn is. So once again, ignore the tail, don't even worry about it. We're gonna take the working yarn that's attached to the ball and make sure that that is on the right hand side, because we're gonna work again from right to left. Now there's something that I want for you all to notice about this first stitch. Oftentimes people will add stitches onto what they've done because they pull this up and it pulls up what we call the legs of the stitch, so it looks like there's two, when in actuality there is only one stitch. So we can see here there's a row of bumps all the way across, and we want to make sure that we stay above that bump when we go back in, and you'll see what I mean in a second. All right, so we hold it like this. Again, our hand is right at the top, and we are going to insert the needle like we did before, because we're just repeating the same process again. So when I say make sure that you're above the bump, this right here, we're inserting the needle from below, above that, like before. Okay, then we're gonna take our working yarn on the right, go behind and between, take it with our right hand, trap that down, push it through, and repeat it again. All right. It's nice for this first thing that we're learning. Whoops. For this first thing that we're learning, it's the same thing over and over and over again until we're ready to bind off. And we're going to continue this until we have a square piece of fabric. So just to show you, I'm going to quickly just work to the end, all the way across. So once we're finished with that, we're gonna take this, move it to the left. We see, okay, like this is on the right-hand side. We're ready to go. We go above the bump and we knit every single stitch for the next row. So once again, same exact process, just like that. So I'm gonna continue just repeating this over and over again until it is a square. So real quick, you can see we cast it on here, and now from going back and forth, like repeating that process, it's growing from the bottom up. And as we continue going, it's gonna get sort of taller and taller. So I will see you back here once I have that done. All right, so I'm just finishing my last row. And the way that you can tell if this is a square or not is we can lay it flat and take this corner on the right and fold it over. And if it matches up with this edge, that means it's a square and it's time to bind off. We begin it like normal, where the yarn is on the right and we go above the bump and we knit the first 2 stitches normally. All right, maybe just a little bit looser, like not pulling quite as tight on the working yarn as we were before. Then we are going to take this stitch on the right and we're gonna cast it over the one on the left. So to show you, I typically take my needle on the left and I just go in here and I grab it and I'm holding this stitch down so it doesn't all go flying off. And I just go over like that. I think it may have gone out of focus, so there we go. So let me show you that again. We're gonna go into the next one and knit that. So temporarily we've got 2. Then I take my needle in here, I grab this one on the right, and I just slide that over the one on the left, like so. Okay, if you are struggling to do this, you can also take your right hand and just grab that, just pinch it, and cast it over like that. When I was first learning how to knit, that is how I had to do it. But now that I feel a bit more comfortable with it, this is the way that I go about doing that, okay? So just all the way across until there's only 1 stitch left. That is how we are gonna do it. And you can see already, if I stop for a second, the edge starting to form here on the other side. All right, so all the way to the end. And you can see we got this last stitch. I knit that like normal. I cast this over. So now we only have 1 little stitch left here. So now you're like, what do I do? We are gonna pull this open so it's a bigger loop. And we're gonna take our scissors and we're gonna cut about a 6-inch tail, give or take. We're gonna take that and feed it through. It doesn't really matter if you go from the front or the back, as long as it's going through that loop. And then we're gonna pull it tight until that catches. And with that, we have our finished piece of fabric here. So this fabric that we're looking at, there's kind of wavy. It's not my favorite. I think it looks kind of ugly. But where you knit every single stitch and every single row, the fabric that is created by that is called the garter stitch. And that's basically the first thing that anyone knits when they have never knit before, because it's as simple as it possibly gets. All right, there's one last thing that we need to do to finish off our little garter stitch swatch here, and that is weaving in the ends. All right, so I've got the end that I just created by fastening off, and then I've got the tail from the very beginning when we just started. So it doesn't really matter which one you start with. I'm just going to thread the needle, and I'm going to take this and go in one side of the fabric. It's not super specific where you need to go. I just go in and out about 4 times. So out the other way, in, and then out. Whoops, there we go. I'm just gonna go in and out one more time. So in, and then out, like that. Then I'm going to take my scissors and cut that off, and then give it a little stretch, just like that. You can still see the tail peeking out a bit, but mostly not really. So that's good for now. And then I'm going to go to the other side and do the exact same thing. So I thread the needle, I go in one side like that, out the other, in one side. I'm just gonna go out the other here and cut it like that. Give it a tug. And just like that, we've got a tiny little garter stitch swatch.
What's your name, girlfriend? What's your name? What's your name, girlfriend? What's your name?